Close-up, a museum table lit by a single beam. Tiny brass shapes, animals, human figures, geometric forms, each no larger than a thumb. Your eyes move from one to the next, a bird with its head turned backward, a crocodile with twin mouths, an elephant, a small human figure. Pull back, hundreds of them, arranged by size, by shape, by story. Cut to a trading floor, fluorescent light, traders shouting, screens flickering, numbers cascading, then darkness, silence. Did you know that somewhere in the museum collections of London, Paris, and New York, there are thousands of tiny brass objects, none larger than a closed fist, that contain within them one of the most sophisticated economic philosophies ever devised by any civilization on Earth? They are called a bramuo, the Akan gold weights. Cast by master craftsmen with lost wax precision, each weight is a unit of measure and a miniature mnemonic. Each is a proverb. Not law, not tax code, not a contract enforced by crown or court. A proverb, a compressed truth about wealth, community, and what it means to live among other people. And for the Akan of West Africa, these proverbs were not ornaments. They were infrastructure. Sankofa, sewower firi na wosanfa ayenkiri. It is not wrong to go back for what you forgot. Picture the Sankofa bird. It flies forward, but its head is turned backward, carrying an egg. The bird does not stop. It moves into the future while retrieving a treasure from the past. That image is everything. Progress that refuses to be severed from memory. Innovation that takes inheritance seriously. The proverb and the civilization that built it. You start in modern Kumasi, the pulse of a city that was once the heart of the Ashanti Empire. Imagine palace architecture carved to an exacting geometry, kente woven in bright threads, golden regalia that catches the sun and holds a story. At the center of Ashanti political life was the golden stool, Sika Dwa Kofi, not a seat, but a soul. The stool embodied the collective identity of a people. When colonizers demanded its surrender in 1900, the defense that rose was not merely about gold. It was about the moral, spiritual, and political continuity that the stool represented. Sankofa wasn't a royal secret. It was in marketplaces, in the pockets of merchants, in the weight that decided whether a trade was fair. The proverb organized commerce. The proverb organized inheritance. The proverb organized meaning. The gold weights, when proverbs became the currency of commerce. The Akan economy used gold dust, real grains of gold, measured on tiny balance scales. Standardization was essential. The Abramuo provided that standard, brass weights, each corresponding to a precise unit of gold dust. But each form was chosen with intent. A brass bird was Sankofa. A crocodile with two heads, Funtun Funefu Denkyem Funefu, told you what happens when people of the same ancestry fight over resources. An elephant reminded you that wisdom precedes adornment. Knowledge lets you dress another. Over 3,000 designs have been cataloged. 3,000 proverbs encoded as measurement units. Think about that for a second. Rather than locking commercial wisdom in law schools, courts, or palaces, this society embedded it in the very tools of daily exchange. Every merchant, every buyer, every seller handled philosophy with their hands. The proverb was regulation. The law was communal wisdom translated into practice. Ubuntu, the proverb that built a social contract across a continent, moved south, 2,000 miles to the Nguni and Bantu-speaking peoples who formed societies across the southern African plains. Here, the operating idea was Ubuntu. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is a person through other persons. I am because we are. Ubuntu is more than feeling. It was a mode of resource management, communal land stewardship, shared harvests, collective labor, social systems that absorbed shocks. When illness struck, the network caught the fall. When drought hit, surplus was redistributed. Labor wasn't just a market transaction, it was a reciprocal obligation. The economy was a web of relationships, not an aggregation of individual accounts. If you want to go far, the proverb that moved gold across a continent. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You've probably heard this proverb. Now see it as an economic principle that explains how West Africa powered trans-Saharan trade for centuries. Gold from Akan lands, salt from Saharan mines, manuscripts from Timbuktu, textiles from the Niger Bend, they moved across vast terrains. These caravans and trading networks were sustained by collective systems, guilds, merchants bound by mutual obligation, and shared capital. The Dayula merchants exemplified this. For 400 years, they operated trading enclaves stretching from forest to desert without relying on centralized state guarantees. Cities like Timbuktu weren't merely commercial hubs, they were knowledge republics. Libraries, learning centers, and manuscript traditions flourished because trade networks were also networks of shared investment in human capital. The proverb here isn't quaint. It's the playbook for sustainable long-distance commerce. The inheritance proverb, what the Akan gave their children. The Akan Abusua matrilineal clan structure is an inheritance system built on Sankofa. Property, status, and knowledge passed through the mother's line. Wealth was custody, not conquest. You held what you inherited for the clan and for future generations. Dissipating clan wealth wasn't just selfish, it was sacrilegious. This system institutionalized a long-term time horizon. Children learned a critical lesson early: plant trees under whose shade you will not sit. That's not a metaphor for warm feelings, it's an investment principle. Build for horizons beyond your own life. The Ashanti Empire's 250 years of continuity were not accidental. They were the outcome of governance, culture, and economics aligned around a proverb. The day they burned the proverbs, colonialism didn't only seize land and impose taxes, it attacked memory and mechanism. Missionary schools labeled proverbs superstition. Colonial administrators confiscated gold weights, melted some for metal, shipped others to European museums as curios. Systems like the Abusua were dismissed as irrational and dismantled to fit European legal forms. The Natives Land Act, South Africa, 1913, converted communally held trust into dispossession. What colonialism replaced traditional systems with was not necessarily better at sustaining societies. It was faster at extracting wealth. It had fewer checks that insisted wealth be reinvested in community. It favored liquidation over custodianship. The consequence: vast, rapid movement of capital out of communities that generated it, with no proverb to make return obligatory. What the modern world forgot to build. Fast forward to today. In economics departments, boardrooms, and investor strategy sessions, people are rediscovering a stubborn truth. Prosperity that endures depends on social capital, on trust, reciprocal obligation, and community cohesion. These aren't innovations, they are proverbs in new suits. Across Africa, that wisdom never fully disappeared. It persisted in susu groups in Ghana, rotating savings, chama circles in Kenya, women's cooperatives that mobilize capital at scale, tontines in Francophone Africa, communal granaries, and the informal social contracts that keep neighborhoods afloat. These are modern expressions of Sankofa and Ubuntu, practical systems that bring liquidity, insurance, and social investment to people excluded from formal finance. Development research now echoes what generations already knew. The World Bank and behavioral economists point to the centrality of social capital for resilient growth. Institutional investors notice their portfolio outcomes improve when local communities thrive. Microfinance, rotating credit, and cooperative ownership structures are not stopgaps. They are rediscovered infrastructure. The Sankofa bird in your palm, back to the museum. The tiny Sankofa bird balanced on a fingertip. It flies forward while looking back. That detail matters. The bird does not retreat. It advances with purpose. Its beak carries an egg, the ancestral lesson. Ask the big questions the modern world too often avoids. Wealth for what? Wealth for whom? Wealth that lasts how long? We built machines that multiply capital faster than any previous era. We built systems that create astonishing private fortunes and global market depth. But have we built the philosophical infrastructure to ensure those machines serve communal flourishing over centuries? Not always. The brass weights are in museums. The proverbs are not dead. They live in community networks, in women's saving circles, in patterns of inheritance, in the social capital of neighborhoods. They are waiting to be reclaimed and redesigned for our era, blended into fintech platforms that respect communal custodianship, embedded in corporate governance that measures longevity alongside quarterly returns, translated into public policy that values intergenerational stewardship as much as short-term GDP growth. If you value wisdom over noise, you're already part of the project. You can be a keeper of the flame simply by doing what Sankofa asks. Go back for what you forgot, bring it forward, and let it guide how you measure success. Practical threads to consider. Small actions that scale. Support rotating savings groups and local cooperatives as institutional partners, not just beneficiaries. When advising or investing, ask about the social contracts around a project. Who benefits over time? Design incentives that reward custodianship and long horizons, performance metrics beyond 1 year. Preserve and study cultural artifacts with context. Museums, funders, and educators should connect objects to the practices and systems that gave them meaning. Teach proverbs and their applied practices in entrepreneurship and policy courses, not as quaint history, but as economic design lessons. The Sankofa bird offers a lens more than a blueprint. It insists that innovation without memory is blind, and memory without innovation is static. The most resilient economies are those where the two are braided together. The Sankofa bird in an open palm, the loom's rhythm in the background. You carry the bird forward, not backward. You carry it so the egg of wisdom hatches into systems that let communities thrive across generations. If this resonates, share it. Tell someone a proverb you grew up with. Support a local savings circle. Advocate for policies that reward long horizons. Because the modern world built extraordinary machines for generating wealth. The African proverbs we just revisited built extraordinary machines for making sure that wealth lasts and does what it's supposed to do. Keep people alive, dignified, and together. Sewawafiri no wasan kofa ayenkiri. It is not wrong to go back for what you forgot. The proverb in today's story is not simply a saying. It is a compressed instruction manual, the result of centuries of observation about how wealth moves, how communities grow, and how the human mind either creates abundance or destroys it. African elders understood the language of prosperity before any modern self-help framework existed. They encoded it in their stories, their proverbs, and their oral traditions so it could survive everything that came after. A resource based on a true story carries those same ancient principles forward in a form that works today. For those who feel called, it is in the description below. I make videos about hidden African and European histories, culture, tradition, wisdom, and morals, because I believe we should all understand more about African history and where we are from. If you value wisdom over noise, please subscribe, like, and share. Turn on the notification bell for more sophisticated stories every Thursday by ElEmperor. Click on the end screen to watch more stories the modern world forgot. You will love it.